Well, good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Vale of White Horses Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Max Thompson and I'll be chairing this meeting. This meeting is being held at our office in Abbey House, Abingdon. Voting members are here in person as required, but officers and public speakers are able to join remotely if they wish through Microsoft Teams. The meeting is being streamed live on the Council's YouTube channel for public viewing. I have 5 housekeeping announcements. For those joining remotely, when you're not speaking, please ensure your microphone is muted and your camera is off. If you share a presentation on the screen, please stop sharing as soon as it's no longer needed. Public speakers must only have their cameras on and be unmuted when addressing the committee or answering questions of clarification in their designated slots. Number 2, evacuation procedure. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate the building by the nearest exit, which is the corridor immediately to the right of this meeting, and stand outside by assembly point 9 in the outside area beyond the fire exit. On arriving at this meeting, you should have read the emergency evacuation procedure and signed the fire register. So please inform Democratic Services if you have not done so. Third, mobile phones, please ensure they're silent or off. Fourth, members of the public who wish to leave the meeting afterwards, there's only one application, so I can skip that one. Agenda item 5, when the meeting has ended, I'll ask for confirmation the live stream has ended. At that point, please make your way out of the building, remembering to sign out as you leave. And just final point, this is a meeting in public, not a public meeting. And I ask that members of the public, both those joining in person and virtually, ensure they do not shout out or disrupt the committee's deliberation outside of those who've registered to speak in their allocated slots. Great. So I now move on to the next item. Apologies for absence. Emily, do we have any apologies for absence?
We do. We have apologies from Councillor Vale this evening, Chair.
Thank you. And could we please take a roll call just so we know who's here?
Absolutely. Councillor Max Thompson?
Yes, here.
Councillor Ron Batso?
Yeah.
Councillor Cheryl Briggs?
Yeah.
Councillor Jenny Hannaby?
Yeah.
Councillor Robert Madison?
Yeah.
Councillor Mike Pickhills?
Yeah.
Councillor Jill Rayner?
Yeah.
And Councillor Scott Horton?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. I now turn to minutes. So can we adopt and sign as a correct record of Planning Committee the minutes of the meeting 24th of January 2004? Councillor Hannaby, will you propose that? Seconder? Councillor Horton, thank you very much. All those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. I'll sign those at the end of the meeting. Agenda item 4, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations this evening? Not see any, so thank you very much. Next, urgent business. Emily Hampton, do we have any urgent business tonight?
No, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. And then I turn to public participation. We have 4 speakers registered this evening, and we also received a couple of statements which were circulated to committee and we've read. We may make reference to in either the questioning or our debate, but with that, I turn to the one item we have on this evening, which is 57 The Causeway, Steventon. Holly, I believe you're presenting on this one.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
I'll just share my screen. Chair. So this is a part retrospective proposal for householder development and listed building consent. It's applying for internal alterations already made to an existing garage, proposed external alterations to the existing garage, the installation of a septic tank, the proposed installation of a new widened entrance gate piers, and the resurfacing of an existing concrete driveway and pathway. On the screen now, you should see the location and block plans of the site. 57 The Causeway is a Grade 2 listed building and it's located within the village of Steventon. The site is currently accessed from the north by the causeway, and neighbouring residential properties surround the site to the east, south and west. The northern half of the site is also within the conservation area. On the screen now is an existing site plan showing 57 Causeway on the right hand side, the existing driveway and a grass-crete track between the dwelling and the garage outbuilding on the left hand side. This plan also shows the current location of the now installed septic tank. This slide shows the proposed site plan. So the proposed site plan summarising the works are seeking approval for internal and proposed external alterations to the garage, the retrospective installation of the septic tank, a proposed new widened access, which does involve the rebuilding of the entrance gate piers, and the proposed resurfacing of existing concrete surfaces adjacent to the main house. Here are the elevation plans for you. This is for the garage outbuilding. We've included here the previously approved elevations from the 2021 application for comparison. As part of these current applications, the alterations do not see any external enlargement of the existing built form, but do see a slight reconfiguration of the 5 garage doors and the side door, and a new ground floor window, which is highlighted for you on the plan. The existing entrance gates for the application site are proposed to be widened from 2.85 metres to 3.45 metres. And here are the floor plans for you, again showing the previously approved floor plan from the 2021 application for reference for you. These current applications seek approval for the installation of a mezzanine floor and a small toilet within the garage, as well as the window that was previously referenced. I'll just take you through some site photographs now. This is the view of the front of the house and the main driveway from the causeway. This is a close-up of the entrance gate piers, which are to be widened, and the concrete driveway, which will be resurfaced with a permeable cobbled style block paving. This is a photo of the garage outbuilding from around halfway down the garden. And a closer photo of the front elevation of the building. The septic tank hatch can be seen in the grass in the foreground of this photo. These are photos of the northeastern elevation of the garage and the rear elevation of the garage. The 4 approved roof lights can be seen in the second photo. Just for confirmation, no roof lights have been installed above the constructed mezzanine. And lastly, this is a photo of the rear garden and the view back towards the main house when standing in front of the garage. Due to the shape and nature of this plot, the rear elevation of the neighbouring dwelling can also be seen here behind the established hedging. And here are all the extracts of the plans together on one slide for you. In conclusion, for the reasons outlined within the committee report, on balance, it is your office's recommendation that this householder and listed building consent proposal is approved, subject to the conditions set out with your agenda report packs. It has been identified that due to an administration error, the full wording of conditions 5, 6 and 7 are actually not contained within the appendix or the agenda report. Therefore, the wording of these conditions can now be seen on the screen. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Holly. I'm sure we'll return to you for some questions and to be heard from our public speakers on this application. Okay, so I now call upon our first category of speakers. We have Liz Rice and Robert Green will be speaking against this application. Ms. Rice, Mr. Green, are you here?
Hello,
Yes,
I'm Liz Rice.
Hi there. Well, you're very welcome. Thank you. I believe you're sharing your time, is that right? So 90 seconds each. Well,
Yep.
shall we? Perfect, excellent. Well, should we start with you, Liz Rice, for 90 seconds, and you'll get a 30-second warning.
Thank you. So I live in 59 the Causeway, next door to 57 the Causeway. I'm speaking now as a mother and I'm focusing solely on 3 of the 8 material planning considerations we've raised objections to. Now I'm just going to focus on overdevelopment, overlook, community safety and safeguarding. Overdevelopment. This huge building is meant to be used as domestic garage. Any further additions only move it closer to becoming a residential house or commercial property by stealth. Overlook. A forward-facing window would set a precedent for further forward-facing windows. Any forward-facing window in this garage looked directly into our 60% of our property, dramatically affecting our day-to-day life, especially our 14-year-old son, as it would look directly into his bedroom and bathroom. Safeguarding and community safety. The many unknown male visitors currently looking into my son's bedroom and bathroom are already impacting his mental health.
You have
If
30 seconds.
Thank you. If a window was allowed, these male visitors could observe my son without his knowledge. I believe this is a significant safeguarding and community safety issue, and therefore I humbly ask the Planning Committee to protect my son and reject this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please do stay with us because we might have some questions for you once we've heard from our other speaker as well. So, Mr. Green, would you like to take a seat? Thank you. Thank you. I've got some slides. Oh, perfect.
I'll bring them up for you. Just let me know when you'd like to move
So
on.
the slide, contents of the slides are in, just repeating what really are my objections. They're going back to 2021. Okay. Intro.
Like delay as my apologies for that.
Don't worry, your time won't start till we've started the slides. So.
Sorry.
Please, as and when you're ready.
Okay, right. So I'm going to explain why I feel it's too large and well over equipped for casual domestic use. Why I fear it will be used for commercial purposes, and questioning the process of the applications and provision of information. Next slide, please. I think it's 111 square meters. It's more than even a quadruple garage. And why is it so high? And why is it so far? It's as far away as it could possibly be from the dwelling itself, inconsistent with domestic use. Next one. Oh, sorry, go back. I do beg your pardon. It's the next paragraph. Right. The toilet, rather than a Saniflow solution, very expensive. Described as too small, not small. The septic tank's the equivalent use for a 3-bedroomed house. The other thing was described as not small. It's not small, the mezzanine floor, because it's even bigger than the requirement for a bedroom in the UK.
You have 30 seconds.
Right. Commercial use. This is the most important thing. The history has been documented. Tristan ran Centurion Power Cleaning before that. His actual, at number 3, his actual business is Thames Valley Classic Limited, storage and sales. It's the sales bit. He imports and restores left-hand drive cars, and it's continual use of a workshop. Even his website offers service, repairs and MOT. It's more than storage. And there you have.
So I'm afraid you've run out of time, so if you could just summarise very quickly.
Okay, and yeah, well, that's it. It's I have a suspicion. If I thought it was purely being used for storage, I wouldn't be here.
Okay, thank you very much. Committee may have questions of clarification for you or for Ms. Rice. So, does anyone have any questions for either of our speakers this evening?
Oh, shall I?
Please sat there. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, Councillor Rayner.
A question for Ms. Rice, please, if that's okay.
Yep.
Obviously, the safeguarding issue that you've brought up there. Does the current garage, I mean, you're saying that people are looking in there at the moment, that is an issue for you.
Yeah.
It's the additional space there, how would that differ from how it is now?
It's the window. So currently, sorry, I'll get upset because it's my son, but currently they can look, it's unknown men. That's my problem. It's not Tristan or Alison, and it's not their friends because we know them. It's this constant stream of unknown men, and they are looking into my son's bedroom and bathroom. I don't know what they're doing, but they are doing that. And if there was a at the moment, he has to look out before he goes into his bedroom, before he goes into his bathroom, to see if anybody's looking at him. And if they are, he has to get changed in the hall. If there was a window, we wouldn't be able to see who was looking at him. That's my big concern. At the moment, we can see, but if there was a window, we couldn't see. And there are just so many men coming, unknown men coming constantly. That's my big concern.
And Tristan said at the parish council meeting that he wanted the window so he could see people coming down the drive past the house to the garage. But I questioned why he had the CCTV. If you've been there, you'll see the post and the CCTV with a camera in a screen in the garage, so he knows exactly who's going up and down the drive. And of course, these are customers of his restoration business.
Yeah, and you know, I do think my son's safety should trump what Tristan is saying, which is a bit of an inconvenience for delivery. And to get there, they have to go through 2 double gates and a security camera. So that's plenty of warning that somebody is coming for Tristan. I think my son's safety trumps that.
Okay. Are there any further council Pickles?
Because that's what the frequency of these visits are. Is
Well,
it?
It's not like I stay.
I was just wondering.
I'm alerted because obviously when a car is demonstrated, it usually starts with being revved up in that forecourt that he's created. So it's only then, if my office actually overlooks, so it's only then when I hear a car revving, that I would be looking out. I mean, I've got a photo of the last one that I saw, and that was 2 weeks ago. It actually features the Lancia that was there sold.
Liz Rice, do you want to come in?
Yeah, yes. It
I'd
depends.
say Liz know better than me.
Yeah. I mean, because they're looking directly into nearly all of our back windows, we have no option but to see. We're not looking. Believe me, we're not looking, but they are looking at us. And it depends on the day. You know, that they've been away recently, so there was nobody. But when they're there, there can be up to 10 different men every day. An average day, I'd say 3 to 4. So it's constant, and that's why I'm so emotional and so upset about this. You know, that to me says it's not being used as domestic garage, because we don't know these people. We know Alison and Tristan very well. They were friends when they lived in Stocks Lane. We know most of their friends, certainly the ones in the village. These people are not friends. These people are different, and they're coming every day. 3 to 4 people minimum every day.
Council Pickles, yeah.
And also just wanted to explore. I mean, I heard you say, or both you say that. So this application is about car storage, but you're saying there's actual direct sales activity and people viewing cars and testing cars.
If you don't mind me saying so, he shot himself in the foot by declaring where the storage is actually operated off-site. Storage is all off-site. He grew that business and needed bigger places than he had. So at 3 Stocks Lane, he had an equivalent size thing. So he started small. The storage is expanded in his off-site near Grove, I think. But obviously his workshop, commercial workshop, needs to be beside his house.
And just to confirm, it's actual direct sales activity as opposed to somebody collecting a car that had in storage, for example.
What I relate to is the revving up of the cars that he's restored and sold. So he revs them up, obviously, while he's restoring them, and the maintenance and one thing. It's the demonstration of the cars. I think it's probably.
Shall I bring in Liz? Liz Rice.
I can put my hand on my heart and say I don't know what these people are doing, but I know that they're not there for 5 minutes. They are there for at least an hour, usually the day. My assumption is they're working in there. This isn't a quick pick up and go, because they're in and out. And you know that's why they're looking at our property. If they were just, if it was just a quick pick up and go, I would have an issue, but not to the level I have at the moment. You know, these people are having their lunch there. They're there the whole time, for significant amounts of time, and different people.
Thank you. You've heard from our officer in her presentation that if we're minded to approve this, then it's been suggested there's a use restriction placed on this application, and that use restriction would mean it's an ancillary garage only with no commercial use. I just want to get a sense from both of you as to whether you think that is an important condition to place on this application. Well, I'll start with you, Mr.
Yes, so I think it is an important condition. I'm sure that if you're minded to grant this application in full, I will spend my time just collating evidence and then put a claim. My main objection, I'm an accountant, is somebody's running a commercial business without paying rates. That's the end of it. So I will just monitor, as I say, the things that I've said, put the things in till eventually we do exactly the same as we did with Centurion Power Cleaning, when he ran his vans, a fleet of vans, and maintained them from number 3 Stocks Lane. But again, that's on record. Previously, it wasn't relevant. I realised when he first put the application in to build that, it wasn't what he did at 3 Stocks Lane wasn't relevant to an application for 57 Causeway. But now the business has moved there. It is relevant.
Okay,
in my opinion.
Understood. Okay. Thank you. Are there any further questions? Ms. Rice, you want to come back in?
I think that would be, if you were minded to grant this, obviously I'd be upset, but I think the commercial piece would be a sensible and useful thing to do. I think if you granted the window, that would also set it up for potentially being a residential property that they could then give to their daughters. My issue is I want to stop these men looking at my son, bottom line, and I don't want them to be able to look at him without us knowing that they're doing it. And a window would let them do it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, my grievance is A, the accountant and the rates, and the noise. So if it's related to tinkering around on a weekend, fair dues. I tinker with my motorbike, you know.
Understood. Councillor Hannaby.
So you are have you got offices, or is it from your home?
I work as a portfolio FD, so I go out to my clients.
Yeah,
and
so it's at home basically.
I do all my paperwork at home.
Yeah.
I do client visits.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? In which case, thank you very much for your time this evening. Thank you both, Ms. Rice and Mr. Green. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I now turn to our next speaker. I'm not sure whether they're here though. Duncan Woolwich. Duncan Woolwich? Okay, I can't see Duncan Woolwich here. Might be having some technical difficulties. I believe was going to join us remotely. Okay, in which case I'll turn to our next speaker, Councillor Sally Pawlowski. Councillor Pawlowski, you here?
I am, thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fine and we can see you, and as you know, you'll have 3 minutes when you're ready.
Lovely, thank you. Councillors, today I speak to you to address an issue that many of us experienced or witnessed at some point in our council careers, the tension between neighbours and a breakdown in communication during a planning application process. Additionally, I would like to shed light on another concerning matter, which is the occurrence of works that have been carried out without the proper planning consent and the lack of enforcement or action on the council accordingly. Representing residents at the planning committee can be a challenging task, especially when tensions between neighbours are high and, as you've heard, very emotional and communication is broken down. It's crucial to approach these situations with empathy and understanding and a commitment to finding common ground. It is our responsibility to obviously ensure that all concerns and voices are heard. And that's why, Chair, I asked this application to come before you as a local ward member, because I felt the tension had gone between and too high. The occurrence of the works being carried out without planning consent is a matter of great concern, but also what is of concern is ensuring the voice of a minor is heard and their concerns around their own privacy and safeguarding and that of their parents. As representatives, we have to hold the system accountable and advocate for a stronger enforcement system that ensures compliance with the planning regulations, which with regards to the septic tank, we haven't seen to this point. And I'm disappointed that the reaction was a retrospective planning application. And I think that if fair, councillors, I think you should question the size of this tank, and especially in relation to what some of the residents are saying around concern of future use of this property. And that future use obviously isn't declared at this juncture. You know, we need a swift response here, and the strengthening of the monitoring and enforcement, and especially with some of the recommendations made. But how will those penalties or non-compliances be applied if there is violations, if you were to grant this planning application? The two concerned neighbours speaking tonight in objection have extremely valid concerns. The current vehicle storage or garage is already very large, and the commercial restriction is an offering. But there's already noise above that of what would be deemed as a hobby or private collection from what I've heard, and the frequency of visitors and the nature of those visits are just not known. We do have to advocate for the rights and the interests of these residents and future residents, and I am very concerned about the future proofing of this not being used as private accommodation or for potential business purposes. I hope that you can make a decision that will hopefully foster a more harmonious living environment for all the residents concerned. And thank you very much for hearing this at committee. But I would heed, especially with relation to the minor, and I know the distress that is causing that family. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pawlowski. Does anyone have any questions for Councillor Pawlowski? I can't see any, in which case I'll say thank you very much. Right, I understand that Duncan Woolwich has joined us after technical difficulties. I think it is important that we hear from the agent, so I'm going to suggest that we hear from Duncan Woolwich now. Mr. Woolwich, are you there? Mr. Woolwich, are you there? I can see.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I can't yet see you.
Thank you.
I can see you now and I can hear you, and you will have 3 minutes when you're ready. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, I've had awful kind of technical problems, but I'll try and get through this as quickly as possible. Thank you, Chair, so for the planning, for the detailed and accurate presentation of the application before you. The applicant would have been in attendance, but is currently travelling, so has no guarantee of a signal. The applicant has accepted the responsibility that certain installations in and around the approved garage will do. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I can hear in 2 different feeds here, which is slightly disturbing. Sorry, around the approved garage buildings, such as the septic tank and which were done in absence of planning permission, but since being informed of such by the enforcement team, we have worked alongside the planning officers to arrive at the application before you've done. And indeed, no further work has been regarding septic to the toilet.
Mr. Woolwich, can you just pause? We'll pause the time. Mr. Woolwich, can you hear me?
Subsequently provided, and the application given unanimous no objection next meeting.
Mr. Woolwich, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Excellent, very good. You were breaking up a bit there. We've stopped your time, so I don't know if you've got a second echo in your room, perhaps, but we're struggling to hear you. So maybe if you turn your camera. Okay, well, let's leave it. Hopefully, he'll be able to rejoin us.
Pre-lockdown, none of us ever knew what these things did. I slept on.
Right. I think if you wouldn't mind, we'll just give it a couple of minutes because I think it's important we hear from him if he can join us again.
Perhaps not put his camera on.
Yeah, I think I'll suggest that when if he rejoins us.
It's obviously not a good signal.
Would you object to us turning to questions to officers before, if Mr. Woolwich is unable to join us, then if he's able to join us, we can go back.
As long as we're just questions.
Just questions, no debate.
Yeah.
Okay, right. That's absolutely right. Well, I'll wait 1 more minute, but if not, I would suggest we move to questions to officers. And if we end up moving into debate, we won't hear from any more speakers. But I remind members of the committee just very much questions and clarification to our officer before we move into debate. Right. Well, if Mr. Woolwich is able to join us before we move into debate, we'll hear from him. Otherwise, we won't. So I'm suggest we now turn to questions for our officer. So questions to Holly Bates. Has anyone got any questions? Councillor Madison.
Thank you, Chair. My question's around the use or purported use of the site as a commercial site. In the report, paragraph 5.18, we have Mr. Woolwich.
If he's back, we'll take a pause. Is it working? Mr. Woolwich, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm going to suggest you turn your camera off because that might mean your reception is slightly better, but we can hear you. And I think you've got about 2 minutes left when you start speaking.
I'm tempted not to touch anything right now because it's going to go
wrong. That's fine. We can hear you. I think you've got about 2 minutes and 10 seconds left, so please continue.
Right, fine. I don't know where I left you, but I shall start a bit in the middle. The parish council were initially unable to comment as they needed more information, which was subsequently provided, and the application was given a unanimous and no objection at the next meeting. All other statutory consultees state they have no objections, including the conservation officer, who has actually declared that the proposed new driveway will be an overall enhancement to the appearance of the area. The past, current and future personal use of the building has been thoroughly explained in the applicant's accompanying statement dated the 13th of December. But he would like to reiterate that he has been a lifelong car enthusiast and has finally found a dedicated home for his personal collection of cars to enjoy and tinker with. With regards to overlooking and safeguarding issues, raised by a neighbour, I'm sure we can see that this is an unjustified claim, seeing as the proposed new ground floor window to the front of the garage is over 65 metres from the rear windows of the neighbour's house, well in excess of any minimum requirements. I can only ask the committee is to give this matter the most careful consideration and agree that the approval can be granted. Thank you, and please do ask any questions, assuming this link is still working.
It's still working. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Woolwich?
Thank you.
Councillor Madison.
Thank you, Chair. Hi there, Mr. Woolwich. My question was around the use of the building. It's been suggested that it might be being used commercially. The application obviously is in mind of a domestic use. I wonder if you could speak a little bit about the visitors to the site that have been reported. We've heard earlier about groups.
Well, I can't report, unfortunately, the applicant is away, so I mean, I dare say he does have visitors, obviously, they may be friends, or they're certainly not business people, because like I said, he runs a business, which is the registered address, yes, is the 57 the Causeway, but as like a lot of small businesses, the registered address is often the home address. It is not where the actual business is operated from, which is actually a remote building, which we can't mention the location for security reasons, is where the actual storage of the classic cars happens. Purely in his garage are his own vehicles for his own personal use, and he's a lover of cars. He has a number of cars. This is why he wanted the garage. This is why the garage was actually approved. We're not questioning the reason and the previous approval in terms of the garage for 4 cars plus, space around it. This has already been granted. We're simply asking for a couple of very minor amendments to the approved scheme, and we are more than happy to accept a condition, if relevant, to limiting the use of the building to personal use, as is the only thing that Mr. Judge wants to do anyway. So that would be absolutely acceptable if required. But we can absolutely reassure you that this is not being used for commercial use.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? I can't see any, so I'll say thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Woolwich, and bearing with the technical difficulties.
Thank you very much for bearing with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And now I'm going to turn to questions for officers. Councillor Madison, do you want to continue with your question?
It was pretty much along the same lines as my question for Mr. Woolwich. We see in the report that officers were satisfied that the site was not being used in any way commercially. I just was hoping you could expand a little bit on what's led you to that conclusion.
Yeah, sure, no problem. I mean, there has been an enforcement investigation that's been opened on the site, which as a result, this retrospective application has come through. Both the enforcement officer and the planning officer have been and visited the site, and overall, based on the evidence that we have got before us, including the enforcement team have seen lease documents, they've seen business documents that are related to the farm site, which I believe is in Milton Hill. And so everything is based on facts and degree of planning, as we know, and obviously there can be some, a hobby, you can have a number of cars, motorbikes, whatever it might be, and sometimes that can tip into business and commercial activity. On this occasion, based on the evidence before us, the enforcement team are satisfied it is not being used currently for commercial purposes, which would mean that a planning condition is entirely sufficient to ensure, in planning terms anyway, that it remains as ancillary and not for commercial use.
I think one of my concerns would be around the grey area between business and hobby. I mean, if he's running a business already concerning cars, storing cars or restoring cars or selling cars, I can see it being very easy for that to blend into his home address, if you see what I mean. It's very easy for him to drive a car from the business address over to his home and just continue working on it there. And I think that sort of grey area, I think, is what concerns me here, especially having heard already that we've had groups of men visiting, groups of 3, 4, even 10, apparently staying long enough they need to stop for lunch, which to me, on what I've heard, sounds more like people coming to work on cars and not hobbyists. I mean, I've had a friend who had a Jag that he worked on, and I went over a few times to see it, and it's difficult for me to imagine groups of people being there in those numbers that often. If it is purely hobbyist and not being used, just as a garage. Those really are my concerns. I appreciate that you've looked into it. Is that something you've considered?
The enforcement team absolutely would have done that in coming to that conclusion. It is based on the evidence available at the time. You'll have statements put forward by the applicant, you'll have statements put forward by neighbours in the surrounding area. As I say, we've seen the lease documents. Obviously, they can't be made public because they are private information. But the enforcement team certainly have had pictures inside the building, both on the site here and the business building. They've been up to the commercial unit. So based on the information that we have available to us, sort of DVLA evidence of where things are sold from, how documents are kind of traded, effectively at this moment in time, we're satisfied to recommend approval with a condition attached.
Can I just, as a
No, I'm afraid not. I'm afraid it's Councillor Hannaby.
Well, I have a grandson who's a car enthusiast, and I know that they do, when they get a car they like, then crowds do crowd round. I take on board what the officers have said. They really looked into this thoroughly by the sound of it, and the condition will be put on there accordingly, where enforcement can come along and enforce the planning application. Whether there's a toilet in there or not, that might be for own personal use. We're also looking at the septic tanks as a retrospective, which we do on any other plan that might not be quite right. The thing that's I'm just wondering, obviously about Mrs. Rice's son, what can we do about that? That to me is more of a worry or a concern. It's all perspective, because it's all, we're not there. And obviously, the 14-year-old child does believe that this is a situation for him and can't be pleasant for him. So what can we do about the window in this application?
So yeah, those concerns, those comments have been fully acknowledged. We completely understand sort of where they're coming from. We have to look at it on material planning.
Yes, that's why I'm asking. So you can say out loud.
Yeah, so the distance is to ensure there's no harmful overlooking in planning terms is 21 metres. That's window to window. In this instance, the window to rear elevation distance is 66 metres, and the distance to the boundary, not the windows, to the boundary of the garden is 45. So given it's also ground floor as well, which if this site wasn't a listed building, that could have been done without any permission, ground floor windows. They don't generally lead to significant harmful overlooking, given that the boundaries around sites. So I empathise.
Could we say it has to be obscure? Or?
In planning terms, again, there wouldn't be a necessary reason for that because it meets all the amenity grounds. That being said, if members would like to see that condition,
I feel that's where I'm going with this. Because we had a situation at a planning at Cumney Hill once, and I know that we put an obscure in a bedroom, actual fact, which as well as downstairs for the kitchen, etc. So I'm putting it out there because we've got other questions, no doubt, coming. It's just, I'll leave it at that, and I'm sure there's other questions coming.
Holly, I have a question. So we're looking at this condition about restricting it, so no commercial use. I mean, what restrictions are there currently on this site? I mean, because we've got a pre-existing application, so are there restrictions currently?
Yeah, so the building can only be used for incidental or ancillary purposes. It's a householder application. It's the building is obviously already there, but you can't stray beyond that, which would mean you could homework, like we've heard, in a home office, as long as people weren't coming, you weren't doing that trade. You could use it for gyms, or anything that's ancillary to the main dwelling. So we've just gone one step further here to really reiterate with a condition that ancillary does mean no commercial use.
I think my key point, thank you. My key point though was there was a previous application that approved this to
Yeah.
start with,
Yeah.
did that have this condition on, or did it have I'm just curious whether the P21 application that came
Find
through
that out for you.
had this. So basically, I was keen to know if this is a stronger condition than what's previously done.
It would have been anyway, because we've added the no commercial use element to it, which isn't usually in a standard condition. It would just say ancillary, which implies you can't use it for commercial, but we've gone one step further here to be precise. So we'll just check whether that was
Thank you.
on the original.
And just related, if at any point in the future, the applicant wants to turn this garage into a domestic dwelling, that would require listed building consent and planning consent,
Absolutely.
and to come back to.
Yeah, any form of new dwelling, a subdivision of the plot. Not only would they need planning permission, any kind of works to subdivide, putting up fences, walls would also need planning permission because of the listed building. It's also worth noting as well, although we haven't added a specific condition for other permitted development alterations, they can't do that because it's in the curtilage of listed building.
Understood.
So any more windows, any more alterations to that building would need to come back in for planning permission as well.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Councillor Rayner.
Can I just ask about the small septic tank? I don't know much about septic tanks.
No, it's not small.
Is that small?
I must admit, again, I'm not a drainage engineer and I wouldn't be able to comment on that. That being said, our drainage engineer has looked at this and has no objections at all. So I wouldn't have any grounds to raise concern or issue with that, other than if you have concerns that, oh, that could mean it could be used as a separate house. Again, they would need planning permission for that. So that would be assessed at that time.
I'm sorry. I'm afraid we can't take any more comments from anyone who's not on committee at this stage.
I was only going to ask.
I'm afraid we can't. I'm afraid we can't take any more comments.
I'll ask Holly.
And it's no, sorry. I do apologise, but we have to follow our rules and our procedure.
I'll ask Holly.
Yeah, please. Yes. Any further questions for Holly?
If I may, it's a comment more than a question, is that the planning commission beforehand was agreed, and I've looked at the objections and that, and there isn't, again, I look at the people that should be objecting on this, and we haven't really got anybody, officers and any people that we might believe to object. And they do object to and then we perhaps have to over. So yeah.
So I think we've got some information about the condition on the previous application. I just wanted to be clear on this. So the previous application, what conditions were on that about commercial use? And
there weren't any conditions on that. So because in planning terms, you don't necessarily need a condition. The permission, the description and the householder nature of it means you cannot go beyond that anyway. Often these types of conditions are to reinforce the permission to say without any shadow of a doubt you cannot do that. So there wasn't a condition on the P21 one, there would be on this one.
Right, okay. Have we got any further questions for Holly before we move into debate? Right, in which case I'm gonna request that we get a motion on this application. So would someone want to put forward a motion? Councillor Batstone.
Yes, I propose that we accept this application. I think the officers have thoroughly covered the issues involved, and although it obviously does cause some distress to the local to the neighbours, it really is not a planning problem. I think it's a problem outside of planning. So, but I think in planning terms, we've done sufficient to approve this application.
Okay, can I have a seconder for that application? Councillor Madison.
Thanks, Chair. I'll say a quick word. In planning terms, if the building is suitable for use as an ancillary attachment to the domestic dwelling, I think we have to take that at face value and accept or reject the application on that basis. If it was very clearly could not be used essentially in an ancillary manner, then I think that's a different question. As this can be used in a hobbyist way, I think that's what we have to accept. as to the other question of the commercial use, while I don't have the extent of information that our officers have reviewed, I do retain a little bit of personal scepticism about the way it's been used, based on the reports we've had from neighbours about the number of people visiting and the length of time they're staying. If they are staying long enough to be having lunch breaks, and if they're coming in groups of 3 or 4 or 10, that to me does not sound like hobbyist use. Hobbyists, I can imagine coming around on a weekend, even in a group as many as 10, to see an old classic car. You know, you might wheel it out of the garage, rev it up, have a nice walk around, a look at it. That I can imagine. Coming multiple times a day in groups, to me, I think that there's reason to be sceptical there. And although this isn't exactly the forum for it, I would encourage whoever needs to have a look at that to have another look at it. On the planning aspect of it, it's not for us to say in planning terms that we think it's being used commercially, therefore we'll reject it. We have to look at the building itself. And so in those terms, I think it's acceptable, which is why I second Councillor Batstone's motion.
Okay,
Yeah, so I go along there. We are looking at the planning terms, but I have got concerns about the window, and I'm just wondering if we could strengthen the plan to have obscure. Well, that's just something I'm asking again.
So, I mean, I guess we probably should, part of the debate should be whether we feel like a strength and condition.
I'd like to put that forward for debate.
Is necessary. Put it forward for the debate. Okay. I mean, I guess to get a sense of people's views on the window and obscuring it. Yeah, that's awesome.
I think the idea to make it an obscured window would somewhat reduce the impact on the neighbours. On the other hand, from what we've been told of the reason for having that window, it completely defeats the purpose of it, which would then question whether it would get installed at all.
That's enforcement.
I think I don't know. I mean, I feel I'm incredibly sympathetic to what we've heard about the safeguarding issues, but I think I don't know. It's awful, but this is 66 metres away. I mean, this is quite far away from the property, and I'm just not sure a condition to obscure that window would be reasonable. I mean, I don't know. It's ultimately, you know, issues of people visiting a property is not something we condition at planning. And you know, I'm incredibly sympathetic if there are people visiting it, but to Councillor Biggles, do you want to go? Tell me if I'm wrong.
So I mean, I think putting a condition on the window would be obviously possible to, you know, and unreasonable in planning terms, no matter how strong we feel about the. However, I mean, I think that there's some crucial points here. One is we must be absolutely confident that we've done everything possible to prevent scope creep with this building, either a transformation into a fully fledged commercial business or into a kind of residential property. I mean, it's pretty most extreme. So I'd like to just make sure everyone's kind of very, very clear about we've done as much as we can from a condition perspective to prevent scope creep with this particular building. Second thing, in terms of, I'll pick up on Councillor Pawlowski's comment about you know, there are ways and means of kind of resolving these issues, which aren't planning issues to do with the overlooking or risk of overlooking. And you know, I mean, I do, actually, the more and more I think about it, the more and more I can see how threatening it can be, particularly for a minor to have this happening in their back garden almost, because I think back gardens are normally regarded as being safe spaces, aren't they? And so I kind of, and I just wonder if there's a better way of solving the problem. I mean, why do we actually need that window? Has a window actually been installed? It hasn't, has it? Why do we actually need a window? We could reject planning permission for the window itself, couldn't we?
we have to assess the application on its merit through you, Chair. Sorry if you don't mind
Please, yes.
responding. We have to assess the application as submitted before us, and if there's no planning harm, which we have officers haven't found, there's no reason for us to request an amendment. If the applicant came back and said, "Oh, I don't want that window there," and removed it, then we'd assess it on that basis as well. But at this time, we have to assess the application in front of us. So it's
That's Andy.
But I really want to understand, as I've sat on this planning committee for many years, and we have put obscure windows in downstairs as well as upstairs to protect the neighbours' privacy. And I'm just saying that that is what I propose in this window, if the window is going to be put in, that happens. And that's all I'm saying. And if you object, well, fine. But it's been done before.
That's all right.
Would an obscure window mean that someone could still look in, but you just can't see?
Not really, and it'll help.
Means you can't really see out or bathroom.
That's the way we've used privacy.
No, I just didn't want it to
And
make the same.
The light will still come in if they want light in there. The light will still come in, but it gives a little bit of for privacy for others if they feel threatened by it. That's all.
Councillor Briggs.
Yeah, I'm totally in favour of having an obscure window. Anyone that's had teenage kids will know that yeah, they like their privacy. And obviously the son sounds like he was feeling quite threatened. So I think that would help actually.
What would be the wording for that if you did?
we would simply say that notwithstanding the details already received, that window must be installed obscure glazed.
But simple.
That's about so.
I really don't see the need for this at the moment. The window is 63 metres away. I suspect that the overlooking by people in the garden are not 63 metres away. They're very much closer. So I don't think the window will increase the harm in any substantial way, because being that distance away and a ground floor window, I really can't see increases the harm of what is obviously happening at the moment.
If I may, it's obviously the window that is disturbing the neighbours.
So I think
which I'm just trying to put something forward that would help.
Councillor Rainey.
Sorry, this may be naive of me. Could you put that as a suggestion rather than a condition?
Well,
so no, in planning terms, it has to be
So I think rather unusually, I would just like to get a sense in the room, if that's okay, of who would be more likely to support this out. Well, sorry, who would like to if we're minded to approve, we haven't decided yet, who would want the window to be obscured? Because I want to get a sense of whether we want to take that as a condition on this. So could I just ask for if that's okay, could I just ask for is that all right?
Ideally, we'd like a motion.
We'd like a motion, okay.
Yeah.
So do I
don't think it's not debating this yet.
Well, we haven't stopped debating it yet, but the thing is, we don't actually have a motion about this this condition, right? So would you want a motion on the condition, or would you like us to put forward a new motion with this condition attached?
I would say a new motion with the condition attached.
So I'm going to suggest that maybe we have a new motion with the condition attached, and we see if that passes or fails, and then potentially we'll have another motion come forward. If that's is that would that be reasonable?
Yes.
So I don't know whether or we could vote on this motion as currently stated. I think I'd like to get a sense actually of the a motion with the window obscuring. So Councillor Pickles.
I would like to make sure that we're satisfied with, because the more important issue for me is scope creep on this building, and I don't want to close down with a motion if we haven't fully established that we are doing everything possible to
understood. Well, let's establish that first, and then we can maybe we can move on. It's just like what I don't want to do is vote on this if people would prefer a motion with, you know what I mean. I need to make sure that we're voting on the right motion. Right. Is there anything further on the commercial usage that people want to ask on specifically before we talk more about the window?
Well, I'd like to ask a question. I mean, so the moment we have a set of conditions which you believe will prevent the creep up. From a residential perspective, they'd have to apply for a brand new planning permission if it went beyond car storage, a garage rental use. In terms of the actual conditions we've got for commercial usage of, is there anything more we can do to lock this down further, or do you think we've gone as far as we possibly can?
I think we've gone as far as we can. So we've defined the permission in the description and the nature of it, which is a householder. Secondary, we've got a condition saying you must only use it for incidental or ancillary, and you definitely cannot use it for commercial purposes. And again, we also have the fallback position of, given it is a listed building, they couldn't even put up a fence or anything subdivide the site without planning permission, because you can't erect those. So in terms of both the commercial nature of it and any sort of concerns that sort of it could be used sort of as a separate dwelling, anything of those sort of nature would require planning permission as well. So I think that's sort of all the conditions and all the kind of as I say, defining the permission that we can do in this case.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So how are we proceeding from here? Because we must get on.
Can I just check? So the window relates to the listed building application. So we've got a householder application, and the window relates to the listed building application.
So it's
Sorry. Can I just
it
clarify?
will be both. So what you're looking, sorry,
Sure. No, I just want to
pardon me,
clarify.
the listed building. What we've got to be clear is there's a number of things we're looking at here. It's retrospective. We've got the building itself.
Sure.
And we've got its use.
Yes.
And then we're looking at, obviously, we can't do any changes, but we can add conditions, obviously, in relation to the window.
Right. So so we have a motion to accept the office recommendation without any additional conditions. Councillor Hannaby has suggested an additional condition to obscure the window, and I should ask the proposer in the second of the motion whether they accept that condition or not.
And the reason I'm doing it is for the mother that spoke very movingly about her child, and I don't see that there's any reason why we should not try and help the situation.
Understood. So we need to see if the proposer and second of the motion accept that condition.
I'm okay with the condition.
Yeah, I'm okay with the condition, yes.
Okay, right.
Reluctantly.
Right, okay, in which case we now have a motion to accept the officer recommendation with an additional condition. I want to clarify the wording of this, that the window that was installed would be obscured to avoid overlooking. Is that
Notwithstanding what's on the plans already,
yeah,
the window must be and maintained as such as well without being changed.
Okay.
And I think that one would go on the householder permission, because the outbuilding in itself is not listed, but because it's in the curtilage, you need planning permission to do any work.
Right. So we're debating this now. So would anyone like to say anything further? That's all.
Just one clarification, if I may. Us adding this condition to make the window obscured would then require further planning application where they want to change it to be not obscured in the future.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further debate on this? Right, we need to vote on this twice because there's a householder application first. So first of all, I'm going to call for us to vote on the householder application. So all those in favour of the householder application? Those against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's 5-3, so I believe that passes. And now on the listed building application, those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? That's 5-3, and that passes. Well, thank you very much. Well, thank you all. Thank you to all our speakers. Thank you to our officers, and thank you to you members of the committee. And with that, Bertie, could you please confirm the live stream has ended?